recording this. And just welcome everybody. This is our 11th Open for Business webinar. Today we'll be talking about financial forecasting, something that's really important for you to manage your business. So joining us today is the speaker, Adam West. Adam has a background in banking, company valuations, and is also a management consultant. He runs his own consultancy now, and is going to be going through a very simple financial forecasting model with you, which will help you plan for the next 12 months and also talk about your future financial planning. So I won't hang around any longer than I have to. Just one quick note: if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. If you have general observations or you want to share anything with the rest of the group, please just put it in the chat box. We'll be keeping an eye on both the chat and the Q&A, and so please feel free to ask questions when they pop into your head. We may not answer them instantly, but we will endeavour to answer them as soon as we can as the flow of the session goes. So Adam, I will hand over to you, and I will be coming back in and out as required with the questions. Adam, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Will. And good morning to everyone. It's nice to sort of be here today and talking through financial forecasting. So as a bit of an introduction, what we'll sort of hope to get out of today is I'll sort of take us through, obviously, the COVID model that I've sent. This is going to be a useful tool to sort of sit there for the next 12 months and sort of plan out your cash flow forecast, identify any gaps, and help you actually understand the drivers where you can sort of pull those levers and pull back some cash. I'll show you how to set up your own sort of financial forecasting tools, and then I'll show you some more sort of complex and give you a few little tips and tricks around that. Now, feel free any point in the presentation, put a question up, ask a question, and I'll come to them every sort of 5 to 10 minutes and tick them all off one by one. So as a bit of an introduction, I guess my way of background, I sort of spent couple of years in management consulting, banking, corporate valuations, and now I've started my own little consultancy firm helping small to medium-sized businesses and startups basically getting their finances in order, preparing their financial models, doing their company evaluations, and for understanding, I guess, strategically what they need to do to get to where they want to be going. Basically today, what we'll be having a look at is I'll take us through three things. Number one, I'll take us through the Excel sheet that I've sent through. Teach you guys how you can it's a simple forecasting tool, teach you how you can use it and how you can use that to understand what's going on right now in the world and apply it to, I guess, some real world situations. I'll use that same spreadsheet to show you very quickly how you can set up your own little 12-month forecasting tool, understand how to do different scenarios in Excel, understand how to understand your business drivers and pull the different levers within it. And also a few little tips and tricks. The tool itself, Excel is a very powerful tool, so you can use that to basically do anything your heart contends. So I think there was an email and a link to the Excel spreadsheets that Will sent out. I'm not sure if everyone's.
Yeah, so I sent it around yesterday. So Paul's looking for the location. It was sent with the email yesterday, Paul, which was when I sent the Zoom link late yesterday afternoon. So if you look at that, and I also sent it this morning in the reminder email. So attachment to the email I sent today, that's where it is. So yeah, so Marie's got it. So yeah, Paul, if you still haven't found it, okay, great. No worries. Back over to you, Adam.
Perfect. And if not, we can sort of distribute it, send it around after, and I'll show you how to do everything on the call, and happy to field any questions after. And basically, yeah, moving on. So we'll have a look at Excel now. We'll have a look at the key uses behind it. So basically, you can use Excel, set up your scenario test, understand, if your business is growing at X, what do you need to do? Like, have you got the capacity to even grow at X, or have you got the capacity to grow at Y? You want to set it up to be your budget and forecasting tool, and also your pricing tool. So one of the key things I've sort of noticed in the past is a lot of the time when you're in negotiations to sell a contract, a service, or a product, like I've run everything from a tea business in the past up until like a sort of tourism company. And one thing that you always need to understand is the costs that are going behind them. having a little Excel sheet that you can sort of sit there on the fly, on the phone, put in what you're going to charge and see if you're going to be profitable or not on that job is something very handy I've found in the past. And then other questions that you might want to ask yourself, when it comes up to the end of the year and you need to pay your staff more, you want to understand, do you have enough to pay them? What can you afford to pay them? And how can you keep them incentivized to keep that growth behind it? The second thing, I guess we'll dive into it now. We'll dive into the COVID model. I'll just pull it up on my computer. So now, has everyone got can we all see the sheet on the screen? Yeah. So basically, this is a little model I developed at the start of COVID to help a small to medium-sized business understand what your cash flows are and what you can actually sort of pull back on, what government grants are available, what rent deferral, and what's going to mean particularly if you've got liabilities that stay. If you've got fixed costs that you can't sort of pull back on, if you're going to have the cash flow to move past that, and if not, what options can you start exploring from that? So if we take it to the first sheet, the key to any good model is you really want to set up all your inputs in one place, so you're not jumping in and back and forth in all the little formulas throughout Excel. You're not actually sitting there, and anyone can pick up what you've got and understand what you're dealing with. So if we sort of have a look, and the basis of this model, I've set it up just to be a simple little 12-month forecast, month by month, what your cash flows are going to be. And then it's going to tell you if you're going to have to put cash down, you can add in, if you've got personal assets, if you're seeking investment, or if you can get other sort of debt financing in there. And any sort of working capital reduction, if you're running your business and you've got 60 days receivables and 30 days payable, is there a chance that you can push your payables out, claw back your receivables and get a little kicker there? Also with your inventory, one thing I also always see sort of called out with a lot of businesses is when you're dealing with your inventory, a lot of the businesses will have a longer lead time on the inventory, as in holding more stock. It's good and it's bad on two senses. One sense is often in the way the world's going, it's becoming cheaper and cheaper to manufacture particular things. So what you find is your actual cost of goods sold will decrease over time. Whereas when you're sort of selling them out, if your sales prices are dropping if you're selling something that cost $1 back 2 years ago and you're selling it today and it's you're selling it for $1, you're not getting profit in that. So you want to sort of really manage the timing of your inventories. And then at the end, a couple of neat little graphs that will help you just sort of pick up and understand your business. So if we sort of talk through it, if we have a look at COVID, obviously we've sort of moved through. The economy is starting to open back up. Most recently, there's talk of Victoria sort of shutting back down, but it's hard to, like anything, it's hard to sort of predict.
Sorry to interrupt, Adam. I just had a comment come in saying that it was very, very difficult to see the see the Excel on your screen. So I'm just wondering, is there any possibility you can increase the size?
Yep, we'll do that right now.
Wonderful. All right, great, thanks.
Quick little tip and trick to actually do that. All you want to do is click on the Excel, this little box up here, hit that, it'll highlight the entire sheet, and then we can put the size up. So how's that in terms of everyone able to see that? If not, we can sort of magnify it. Otherwise, so if we just start off and we put in 6 months for how long we're expecting these COVID restrictions and I guess the economy slowdown to last. And I guess the next box is you really want to have a look at what your revenue drop is going to be as a result, because obviously now we're moving to the new financial year. We've probably got about 3 months of finances, and if you've got seasonality in there, so you want to really take your last year's finances a little more zoomed in. Yeah. We'll also zoom like this. How's that looking for everyone? Perfect, perfect. So if we base our model based on what your sort of last financial years are, your last financial year cash flows are, and then you have a look at applying a bit of a percentage drop to it based on the economic slowdown caused by COVID, say if we put in negative 20% here, that's going to give us a good sort of indication of what your cash flows are going to look like and the cash coming in the door. And then there will obviously be additional cash flows, government grants, JobKeeper, any other sort of, if you've got the New South Wales government grant that was $10,000 for small businesses, all these other little grants and bits and pieces you'll be able to include as well. You want to have a look now at your rent. If you've got a fixed overhead like rent and you've got obviously a rent memorandum or moratorium in there, we'll hit yes or no based on if you have, and if you and then you're going to want to put in here what you expect how much you're expecting to be saving. So say if you're paying $2,000 a month and your landlord's giving you a discount of $1,000, we'll just want to put in here $1,000 and see what that sort of churns out. And then the other thing is if you're going to have any repayment deferrals. So if you can defer your repayments to the end of the COVID sort of economic slowdown, you're going to want to put this in here. If not, you just sort of leave it blank or hit no. And then the next one, you're going to want to look at wage reductions. So if you've laid off any staff, if you've sort of negotiated with staff to work a couple of less days a week, if you've sort of negotiated with your staff that they might sort of take all their holiday leave, so you're not actually got a cash expenditure going out or whatever you might have done, and you want to sort of put in here now if you've basically made a net savings. So say if we put $1,000 in for this make-believe sort of business scenario. And the next one is other expenses. So if there's other expenses you can sort of reduce, such as anything from like your fixed overheads, if you negotiated with the power company to take cheaper rates during this, if you've negotiated any other sort of cheaper expenses. And basically you want to just put this in and put how much you can save. So if we chuck in $500, now we're going to want to assess. So we're going to want to look at your balance sheet, because this is basically going to tell you, your strength behind your business, how long you can survive, how long you can go and shut down before you need to go out and start finding your next income. So if you jump in here and say we've got, $5,000 of cash in this business, we've got accounts receivable, you might have suppliers outstanding of $1,500 that you can recover. You may have $2,000, but you may not be able to recover that. So you really just want to put the recoverable amount in here. And the next one, you want to assess your liabilities. So this is really going to assess, all right, are you going to have a payment deferral? Can you defer it? And if not, what are you going to be paying each year on year? So if we put in here, if we have a term loan that's sort of, $25,000, we will also put in our interest rate. And the banks are obviously one thing to remember, and I've sort of already calculated this. Generally, banks sort of compound your interest on sort of monthly, daily, weekly bases, depending on how your rate's calculated. So your annual rate, one of the tricky things that always gets called out more so in, larger scenarios is your annual rate just divided by 12 is not actually the interest you'll be paying. So it's good to sort of capture that, and it's a little formula in there that I've sort of already included. So say if your interest rate is 5%, and then your term on your loan may be 48 months. So this will actually calculate what your repayments are going to be year on year. And then you also might have some accounts payable in there. So we chuck in $800 for that. And basically here, we'll have a look at what our COVID monthly income was. So pre-COVID, we'll say this business has been doing $2,000 a month. We've already accounted for a bit of a drop. We might increase that drop to 50% up here. We'll have a look now. And the other thing to look at as well, you can also look at what your pre-COVID revenue was on a flat line, or you can have a look at what your pricing was. So you might be selling your widgets for $10, and you might be selling 100 of these or 200 of these a month. Because this is going to allow you to sort of sit there and have a fiddle and a play around. You might be selling post-COVID 100 widgets a month, but you can also, reduce your price or increase your price, and you're going to want to be able to sort of tinker around, have a little play of this. And then variable costs. So if your widgets are $10, you might want to say $5 a unit. You might want to say you already have, $300 worth of stock, or we'll put in 300. And we'll say our rent was $2,000 a month. Now, the other thing we want to sort of adjust here and have a look at is what your staffing was. And because obviously up here, we've already captured what your salary reduction is. So we can put in something like, say this business has 12 staff, the average monthly wage per staff is, you might be paying $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. 12 staff is probably pretty hefty. We'll say we'll have 2 staff. And if there's any other expenses, now the idea of the model now, it's sort of built out and spit out what your cash flow is. This business, this make-believe business, we sort of put in there, it's not looking very healthy. We sort of only have $2,000 coming in a month. When COVID sort of hits, that reduces to 50%. And then obviously we've got our variable costs, we've got inventories, and then we have our rent and our salaries that sort of kick up and defer based on wherever we've sort of put our COVID in there. We've got in here, so what our financing is and what our repayments. We're paying $1,300 a month. We've got a working capital reduction, so we're having to take out of our working capital. Obviously, we need to get inventory in there. We need to get our accounts payable and everything. And in the end, we've got a negative cash outflow. So basically, this is a neat little sheet to help you just sort of set up and monitor what your cash flow situations are. And now I'll show you. So if we go back to the presentation, I can take you through. So that's just an example of sort of a budgeting or a forecasting tool that can set out and very simply you sort of put in 12 months worth of data. You just put it in one sort of line and it forecasts out. And the key thing is you want to sort of go through and just sense check all your assumptions and just make sure, okay, we've put sort of $2,000 a month for what we're gonna be hit by COVID. But now let's have a look at, obviously, maybe one month you might have 2,000, the next month you have 3,000, the next month you have 4,000. So you want to capture, and if you put any questions in the Q&A box. So if you capture, whatever you're sort of capturing, you're capturing obviously that seasonality trend and you're not sort of picking up, every month's $2,000 you make, because obviously that's not how most businesses run. You have your good months, you have your bad months, and you learn to sort of manage your business around that. And when you're dealing with a scenario like COVID or something, you want to understand what the hit's going to do, because obviously if you're sort of planning, your forward planning is, you've got negative cash outflow of $3,000 in November, for instance. If you've just lost all your revenue for the next sort of 12 months, or if you've had that reduction, that cash outflow is going to obviously increase. And are you going to have the visibility and are you going to have the cash flow financing to sort of meet those obligations as they come up? So next thing, I guess what I'll take you through is I'll show you, I guess, a basic 3-way financial model. The idea behind one of these guys is what they do is they predict out what your business is going to look like for the future. So you're looking out 5 years and you're looking out on a monthly basis. And this is really key to any sort of financial planning and forecasting, because it not only just looks at your revenue lines and your cost drivers and bits and pieces like that, but it looks at your balance sheet, it looks at your cash flow statement. It basically gives you, at the end of the year, like you're getting your financial statements from the accountant. It's forecasting out in Excel what your financial statements are going to look like, and you can sort of plan your business accordingly. You can sit back and say, all right, I'm expanding at a rapid rate. For example, 20% a month, I've got the capacity to make 500 widgets, but I need to, obviously build 2,000 widgets a month. Now I'll just share this other screen with you guys. So I need to sell 2,000 widgets a month. I'm obviously going to have to increase my manufacturing capabilities. I'm going to have to, put down $2 million on a new land, new building, and new equipment to be able to do that to meet the growth. So these are the questions you want to be asking yourself when you sort of set up these models, set up these forecasting tools. You want to have a look at what your current capacity is, what's your planned growth, because obviously you're limited by what your resources are. You want to have a look at what your 100% capacity is, and you want to sort of sit back and say, okay, look, this is my 100% capacity. Am I happy growing to this point? What's my game plan if I grow to this point? Obviously, if you're a services business, for example, you've got cash flows coming in for a certain number of months on your contract, but then that's going to fall off. So you're going to want to sort of have that forward planning forecasting tool to sit there and say, almost like a Gantt chart. So you sit there and you've got, 12 different contracts all falling on different dates, and you want to sort of sit back, ask yourself, all right, when does the revenue drop off? When can I take on new clients? When can I not? Because I'm running out of capacity now, 100%. Or do I want to start planning ahead and hire staff or put in another computer in the office or whatever it may be to sort of increase your capacity of your business? And the other key thing, I guess, with these financial models, it allows you to sort of stress test your business. So you set them up so you've got all your expenses driven by your revenue. You might have sort of your fixed overheads that won't change, but you've got your variable costs. And examples of these are, if you've got a manufacturing business, you might sort of have, can we have this sheet as well? Yeah, I can sort of, I'll put it up on the screen and we can share. This is more just an example of sort of a three-way model, but I'm happy to sort of talk you guys through it and everything. So basically, this one here is a little more in depth than the last sort of one. The last one was just looking at 12 months. This sort of looks over a 5-year forecasting period. You look at everything and you can set these up. So what you want to do as well, you want to set them up for all your employees, all your sort of variable costs. You want to have it with employees. You look at sort of having their starting date, their end date, what their bonuses are, what their increased salary increases are, and everything. You build this out, and then you can sort of start forecasting, planning for the next financial year and the financial years after that. This is really just to give you a quick overview of what you can do in Excel. So I guess there's a lot to these things. I've sort of set this sheet up more as just an example of a manufacturing business. You know, what it actually does is it calculates on a FIFO basis, so first in, first out basis, what your actual incremental cost base is. So if you sat there and say, bought 4 widgets here, you've got a pricing here of $51, and then you're selling 2, so it will sell 2 out of this original 3 lot, and then you'll sell another, shut down here, we'll sell another 2 here. And what it's going to do, it's going to calculate what your first in, first out basis cost base is. Same with sort of debt schedules. This is, I guess, a bit more in depth than the last one, and it sort of sits there and calculates out what all your repayments going to look like. If you've got revolver facilities in your businesses or lines of credit, how far can you tap into them? What are your loan covenants as well? Because obviously a lot of businesses, particularly if you're in the property sector, run on pretty tight LVR sort of metrics. So you sit there and you sort of say, you know, the bank will allow me to leverage up 50% based on my bank valuations each year. How much can I actually leverage up? How much can I sort of save over the years? The next sort of key ones are, and I guess this is the key sort of crux of it. And if we can all see the screen, I'll just double check. So basically what the model does is one of these models will spit out what your financial statements are for the next 5 financial years, spit out what your balance sheet's going to look at and what your cash flow statement actually going to look at. So what's your closing cash balance? And you do that because you set up all these sheets to have the drivers. It's a very useful exercise to sort of do because it sits there and makes you sort of think about each different cost item on your P&L, each of your cost structures, all your balance sheet items. It makes you sit there and think, what's actually driving these? Because effectively you're going to have a lot of costs that, you know, you've got employee costs, which are fixed. You might also have casual staff. If you're a restaurant, for instance, you like to run your casual staff, number of waiters per number of participants or something. So it really wants you to sit there and think about what's actually driving these. And that's a useful exercise because when it comes to time where your business deviates from your standard, what you're knowing, you can refer back to this and refer back to the thoughts you've sort of put in place and sort of thought, oh, okay, like, you know, we're growing now 20% year on year. I think we need to add on another staff member. I think we need to put on another sort of manufacturing line. And then obviously it takes you through your balance sheet. A useful always sort of put in these sheets is these checks and basically just tells you, is your balance sheet aligned or is something from another schedule not aligning? And the same with your cash flow. So basically these are quick checks and making sure that your model actually works, your balance sheet balances, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So this was just a bit of an overview. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. This is pretty much the crux of running an efficient business. And the useful thing with one of these are you can, on the back end of it, you can pull out what you expect your cash flows are going to be for the next 5 years, and give yourself a bit of evaluation as well. As so you can do a discount cash flow model, and you can apply a discount rate where you sort of source that based on, depending on the size of your business and everything, you sort of base it on listed companies. And there's a lot of literature out there about what discount rates you should be using. But then it allows you to sort of discount your cash flow back and understand what's your business worth today. And then understand as well, a useful part of this exercise is you'll be able to sit there and say, all right, my business is growing at X. This is what I'm worth today. What are the levers I can pull inside my business to actually increase the value to me? And you sort of sit there and say, all right, maybe I need to run my business a bit more efficient. Maybe I need to, geographically diversify some of my revenue. So this is just a pro forma spreadsheet. Happy if you send me an email afterwards, I can share one that you guys can sort of use. I'll take you through now, if you guys want, a little 5-minute financial model, and this will be useful for anyone in the seminar that wants to set up their own little 12-month financial forecasting tool. So we'll jump back onto this sheet here. What we'll do is I'll just get this up and running. All right, so we're back on our COVID sheet now. So what I'll sort of do is I'll take us through setting up a little 5-minute financial model and showing you all the little bits and pieces that you need to do just to really understand on a very basic high level what you're going to have to do to build out a cash flow forecast for the next 12 months, what you're going to have to do to actually understand the drivers behind them, and how you can actually set that up so you can run a few different scenarios at once, so you can sort of sit there and you're not fiddling around in all the formulas and everything, because I guess there's a few best practice principles. So I'll do this, let me know if the speed's too fast or anything for anyone, and we can sort of slow it down. We'll grab our modeling sheet here, and what we'll do is we'll go move or copy, move to end, and create a copy. After this, we'll just name this model, and we'll grab from row 4 to row 14, and we'll just delete. And we'll grab from row 6 all the way down.
Can you zoom in slightly, please, Adam?
Yep.
Thanks.
So is this better for everyone? Is this okay, Anna? Perfect. A little more? Yep. How's that? Perfect. Can we see that a bit better? And this will be useful as well. I'll teach you a couple of the formulas you can sort of use to actually build out your own Excel spreadsheets and whatnot. So if you want to grab from row 6, and we'll go all the way down to row 35, and we'll hit delete. Now what we'll do here for the dates, we've already got in there today. We'll expand these out now that we've expanded. Expand our date. Now all you're going to want to do here is you want to go plus EOM, and you should come up with this end of month. Click on cell C4 and hit dash, and then we'll hit 1. And basically this is what it's going to do is set up so we can have a monthly cash flow, and then we'll go Control C, we'll copy. A neat little trick, a good thing whenever you're building these, if you learn your keyboard shortcuts, and then go Control Shift, right arrow, pull it across, and we'll go enter. And if not, another way you can sort of do this is if you want to grab this one, grab this little square down the bottom, click that, pull that across, and you'll be set up. Next thing we'll insert a couple of rows up above this, and we'll call this our scenario tests. And we'll set it up, so we'll do a basic business today, but we'll set it up so we'll have revenue here, we'll have price, we'll have quantity, And then up the top here, we'll put 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now what we'll do here is we'll chuck in 2 more rows up the top, and let me know if this is going too fast for anyone and we can slow it down. Otherwise we'll go selection. And then what we'll do here is we'll go data. This is a very useful tool in Excel as well. You want to keep data validation. Click where it goes allow. There's a nice little drop down list. Click source. And you can sit there and you can select all these scenarios. So you want to select cell C to G7. And that's going to give us a nice little list now that we can select what scenario we're going to do. So we'll start off on number 1. Now here we're going to want to enter in some different scenarios from our pricing, our quantity perspective. So we might keep a flat price. We might say 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And how you might think about this is you might think 12 is your baseline price. What's your quantity going to do is if you start dropping your price, and what's your quantity going to do if you start increasing your price? So if we say at $12, we sell 100 units a month. You know, if we start increasing our price, we're probably going to expect our quantity to start dropping off. So we'll say 95 and then we'll say 85. And then likewise, if we drop our price, what's our quantity going to do? Increase. So we'll just put in, for namesake, 120 and 130. And then the last thing we want to do, we'll want to set up now 2 for our sort of cost columns here. So we'll go costs. We'll want to put in here variable costs, and we will want to put in here fixed. Now we'll say if this business is running at $500 a month, and you can obviously build these scenarios out to be quite larger and have a look at all the different cost drivers. Because what you want to do is you want to sit and say, all right, my fixed costs are, you know, my rent. I might have to pay accounting fees every month. I might have to pay sort of legal fees every month. I might have to pay, you know, transportation, freight. I might have to pay marketing and the advertising, particular fees. And you're going to want to have a look at, all right, splitting those fees out and saying, what can I cut out? How much can I cut out each little bit and piece? So we'll say, we'll keep it all as flat 500, but I'll show you how you can actually set up these scenarios to model out, you know, if you're increasing, if you're decreasing your certain costs. And then same for variables, you might have a fixed $5 fixed variable cost being whatever your materials are, your goods and your labor to actually create these widgets. And then we might sort of go 6, 7, and we might sort of keep it as 5 and 5. Now the idea of this model, this will be quite basic, but it will just allow you to understand how to set up your own, and obviously you can make them more complex as you go on time, and I'll show you how you can set them up. So you can put in growth rates, growing your costs over time, meeting with inflation. If you can grow your pricing over time, meeting with inflation, you can set up different growth rates in there to grow out, not just on monthly for 1 year, but then you can grow out for the next 3 years, and you can really sit back and understand, okay, well, I'm growing at this pace. Do I have and sort of the idea of these things is to sit there and ask yourself questions, go, all right, do I really have capacity to meet these sort of this revenue growth? Do I have enough staff on, or maybe I've got too much staff? So if we sit here and we chuck in now our revenue line, I'll show you how to actually set up one of these. So a really neat function is if you go equal choose, and we're going to want to reference this number up here. We'll go F4. F4, whenever you click F4, it locks the cell. So when you're moving these around the spreadsheet, you're not going to move around the different cells. And then we're going to say, if we select scenario 1 will pick up that. So we're going to want to click on all our different scenarios we've just picked up here. Then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go times, choose again. And select the same cell up here, C4, lock that, and then we're going to want to choose all our quantities down here. And I guess the neat thing about this as well, because you select these different scenarios, you can select up here different sort of selections. You might have a revenue selection up here. So you might have price selection here, but then you want a different quantity selection here. So even though you have your different, another trick as well, if you just go Control D, it's going to pull whatever you've got up there down below. And then you can simply jump in this formula here. You can click this one here and pull that down so that you've got your first one's lined up to C4, your second one's lined up to C5. Now we'll just do simply, we'll say every month's equal, but you can add in seasonality here as well. And basically that's gonna allow us to sit there and have a look at different scenarios for the revenue each month, and have a look at, you know, if we're keeping our quantity constant but we drop our price, what's that going to do to our revenue? If we're keeping our quantity, if we're looking at an increase in quantity at different pricing, what's that going to do to our revenue, etc., etc. And now we're going to want to have a look at the costs. So we'll look at variable costs, and we'll look at what we might do here is we might just put in another one, and we might go costs. And we'll hit Control D just to pull down the last column, variable fix. And what we'll do here is we'll go choose. And what we will do is this one we'll have to set up a little differently. So we'll click our cost one there. We'll go F4 to lock that. We'll go click down to our variables. We'll click this, we'll hit F4. Then we'll hit comma, click that, hit F4. We'll go comma, click that, hit F4, comma, click, and we're basically clicking all the columns in row 14. So we're picking up all our different scenarios here. Hit F4, comma, and then we'll go F4 here. Now, what we're going to want to do, so that selects what our variable cost is per unit. Now, the tricky thing is what we're going to want to do, and a little cheat and a shortcut is, we'll jump up to our formula here. The second half of our formula selects what our quantity is. So what we'll do is we'll go Control C. So we'll click and select all of our sort of things up here. Hit Control C. Click this down to our variable cost. Hit Control V. That's going to pull that formula. And we're going to want to jump in. So you want to click where it goes C12. Hit F4, D12, F4, E12, F4, and so on and so forth. So we just lock in all those different cells here. So that pulls out what our variable costs are, and then the same for our fixed costs. So we'll just go, nice simple trick, we'll just go Control D. We'll delete that bit. And if you hit F2, we'll click in what cell, and we'll just bring all these little boxes down. And now we can have a play with our sort of fictional business here and see what it's going to do through time. And then the next thing I'll sort of show you is how you want to, if you want to build in seasonality or you want to build in growth. So we'll put our EBITDA here, and we'll say our revenue less the sum of our costs is going to give us what our cash profit is for the month. And if you want to, all you got to do to build that across is just click that bottom box there and pull that across. And that's going to give us a little forecast now. Now, the cool thing is how we've set this up is we've got our 3 different scenarios up here, and we might just put in what our cash profit is for the year here to give us a summation of how our different scenarios is going to affect our business. So if we go sum, put all of that. So we'll set this guy up. And now if we have a look at tinkering with our different scenarios now, so if we want to increase our price to scenario 5, boom, we're making a much larger profit. But then we might want to pull that back, and we might also, because we're already sitting quite low, but let's say, let's bring our costs up to scenario 4, you know, have a look at our profit drop away. And there we go. If we hit scenario 5, we start making a loss. So this basically sets up a very simple straight line forecast now that you can sit there and you can have a play around with the different sensitivities. and the different scenarios within the model. Now I'll sort of open it up. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to sort of ask them now. And I'll sort of take us through a little bit more on this one, and then we can go through actually understanding what drivers in your business there might be. Okay, if there's no sort of driver, no questions, so moving on, we'll set this up now. If you want to actually build different growth rates in and everything, so you might want to say, all right, let's put down here growth drivers. Now I'll show you a neat little financial trick as well for what you want to do, because you might get a monthly annual rate of say 5%. Percentage. Now, if you want to convert that to what the compound monthly rate is, there's a little mathematical formula that you do where you go one plus your growth rate to the power of, and then you want to bracket, and then you go 1 divided by whatever the time is. So if you want to convert this this interest rate into the equivalent compoundly rate of over sort of fortnights, weeks, or months, you basically put the number in there. So if it's weekly, you want to put 52. If it's fortnightly, you put 26. And if it's monthly, you put 12, etc., etc. And what that does is it will convert this into a compound rate, which will give you the equivalent. So when you go through and obviously you apply your rate month for month for month, it's going to give the equivalent if you apply it from the start to the finish. So we'll have a look here, and then we'll have a look at just pulling in different scenarios for this one. So we'll just go 1, 2, and 3. We'll keep it like this just for namesake. What we'll do here is we'll set up our revenue. So we'll break out this, and I'll show you guys how to break it out so we can actually include either seasonality in our sort of quantity grown, or if we can include growth in our quantity grown. So if we go here and we go price and quantity, and then we'll have our total revenue for the next line. This will allow you guys to sort of set this up to put in a little bit of growth or a little bit of seasonality into your business. So we'll sit here, we've already got our formulas. So we'll grab this guy here, which was our first formula to choose the price. Pull that down. There you go. Now all you want to do is just lock all your cells here and pull this across. And you're going to want to now pull the second one, which is going to be your starting quantity. We're going to call this. And we're going to set up our growth drivers now. So what we'll do here is we'll pull this little formula we've done there down to here. And we'll go to the same sort of scenario here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we're a little aggressive at 5%. So let's wind that back and say -2%. Let's pull our formula across here to get our monthly compound rate. And we'll say for the next one, I'll go 1%, 5%, 7%, and let's say 10%, and see what this growth does year on year. And then I'll show you the last thing I'll show you on here, how to add seasonality into then obviously your forecasts and your quantities sold. Can we get you to set up some of these as a consult job? Yeah, definitely. So that's I guess my forte is sort of helping you set up these spreadsheets. I've got a lot of pro formas as well I can sort of show you, and setting up a lot of these to understand, you know, the different drivers throughout your business, and then giving you a tool that you can go away and actually sit there and play with, and I guess understand what's actually going on in the business and what you need to I guess do to grow, meet different I guess like even COVID. But yeah, so I'll show you the three-way model that generally I sort of set up. But taking through this, so now we'll want to go to our different growth rates, and we'll go plus choose. So like we sort of did before. We'll hit our selection. We'll hit our quantity selection there. We'll lock that. We'll go to this guy. Now we'll choose all our different growth rates in here. Lock all these guys. So if you just hit F4, you lock all them. And that's going to choose what our growth rate is for the quantity. And then because we're doing on a monthly growth rate, we'll click on that. And what we need to go is we need to go 1 plus our choose. Set that up. And that's going to grow. That's going to show how our quantity is going to grow over time. And now what we'll do is we'll set this up to tell us what revenue we're getting per month. And the next thing we're going to want to do here is we'll just get another one of these selections. We'll hit growth. We'll hit Control D. And what we'll do here is we'll pull out, not from our quantity, but from our growth rate. We're going to pull this guy down to our growth rate selector. So we want to get C5 and click this down to the growth rate. Pull that across. And now we're selecting scenario 2, scenario 3, scenario 4. And there, that's sort of now set up. So that's set up now. So now you can sort of have a look and look at putting in, oh, perfect. Yeah, I'll share my contact details after this. And if you guys have any questions how to set up these sort of sheets or whatnot, feel free to send them out. So basically going back to this little sort of 5-minute model here. So now we've set up our model so we can have a look at the different sort of pricing scenarios. We can have a look at the different quantity scenarios, and we can also have a look at the different growth rates. So, you know, if we're growing month on month, and same applies for year on year, we're pulling the right sort of growth rates and everything. And what we want to do as well is with this one, I've actually I've made a bit of a boo-boo, applied the annual growth rate here. We want to pull our monthly growth rate from down here and just pull that across. So if you have a look at quantity, we just want to make sure we're choosing the growth rate that's applicable to the monthly that we've calculated up here. And now we've had a look at how our revenues can grow month on month. If we grow our revenues by, you know, an annual growth rate of 1% per year, what's that going to translate over monthly? So this is just a really basic little financial sort of spreadsheet here to help you guys, I guess, understand how to set up a scenario analysis and how to set up a bit of sensitivity testing in your business. So not only you can sit there and easily say, okay, this is what my business is doing. This is how I set up my cost drivers, my growth drivers, and everything. But also now, what's it going to mean if, you know, I wind back my expectations, or, you know, I was a little conservative on my expectations. What if I grow my expectations, and what if I change my different cost structures? So it allows you to have a little play and actually stress test what your business is to meet the different scenarios. Basically from here as well, like another neat trick you can do is you can add in your seasonality and everything, and you can have a baseline. If anyone's got questions on how to do that, just in the interest of time, I'll sort of keep moving. But if anyone has questions how to do that, I'm more than happy to sort of field them and help you set them up. But looking at this as well, this is very high level basic. But what you want to do is you want to sit there and sort of think about each element of your business. And say, for instance, this one here, we're looking at, obviously, this is a very sort of basic manufacturing business. We sell X widgets at, you know, Y price, and what's our variable cost going to be over time. But you're going to want to break out all the different elements, because you've got obviously the different drivers. And this is a useful exercise for you to sit there and sort of think, okay, you know what, like if I actually sell 12 widgets, I need 2 assembly people on the line. I've only got 1, so I can't actually meet 12 widgets. And you put a couple of capacities in there, because the way you want to sort of set it up is you want to have sort of step functions in your models, or you want to have sort of bounds within your models. So you sort of sit there and say, okay, I can only actually, with my staff, grow my business to 12 per month or 13 per month, whatever it may be. I need to actually look at bringing on a new staff. But then it also allows you to sort of sit there and forecast out and say, okay, if I bring on another staff, you know, my seasonality, can I actually meet paying that new staff member? Because I'm going to now need to sell a break-even unit of, 12, 13, 14, 15 per month to actually justify having that staff on. So it allows you to sit there and understand what your break-even capacities are as well. So to run your business efficiently, you might only actually want to sell 11 widgets over time, unless you're confident enough now you can grow to 15, because your break-even point moves as you add on your different cost structures and everything. And setting up one of these sheets actually allows you to sit there and question what the capacities are, but sit there and think, okay, what's my new break-even points going to be? And am I confident enough I can reach them to actually make those strategic financial decisions before you go ahead and do it? Because obviously there's growth and there's smart growth. And smart growth is the growth that sort of says, on this trajectory, I can hit this point, this point, and this point, but I'm going to need to do this, this, and this. Maybe I should hold off on setting up the capacity now until I'm a bit more confident about what the pipeline is in the future. Because looking at, I guess, cash is king in business, and looking at your cash flow, you want to make sure you have enough going in the forward to meet all your obligations, but also have the capacity in there to sort of get more cash in the future. So I'll take us now back to the PowerPoint. Perfect. So now we went through what the key uses of one of these spreadsheets are. We went through the COVID model. This was just mainly a basic example. Disclaimer, not to rely on this or anything. It's more so just to show you how you can set up one of these spreadsheets and how you can use it to actually build out your own forecasting and everything. And then I've showed you a more advanced sort of three-way model. One of these spreadsheets is really great for someone that wants to sit there and sort of strategically think out, okay, because I guess you look at doing a financial model, if you've got a capital transaction coming off, either you're looking at getting new investors on board, you're looking at going to the banks to get more financing, or you're looking at even putting in your own money, and you want to use one of these financial models to sort of sit there and say, is it worth it, or what's it worth today, and evaluate like the different scenarios. Because if you're putting $1 million into your business, what's that $1 million going to get you? What's that actually going to mean for the growth of the business? So you might put in, for example, you might put in, $100,000 to buy a new cafe that allows you to take on 100 new guests per day. What's the max capacity you can increase your growth to, etc. And then winding back, what realistic is this going to mean? And then last one, we sort of went through the 5-minute basic financial model, which it's a great way, and I hope everyone's sort of taken something out of it. How to actually set up your own little financial forecasts. And if you've got any questions, feel free to shoot them across. I'm more than happy to sort of answer them. So Excel is a very powerful tool because it allows you to sort of sit there and just save efficiency rather than doing the back of the envelope calculations and all your decisions. You've got something that's already pre-ready to go, and you can understand how all the different parts of your business is pulling in. Next thing is, so there's a few things with actually understanding your drivers as a business. And what I sort of see and what I tend to think is you want to know, first you want to sit there and know what's growing your business. The second thing, key theme is you want to know, if I'm growing my business, what else does it mean for the other parts of my business? What does it mean for, am I overstretching my staff? Have I got enough capacity on the manufacturing line? A key element of, for example, an infrastructure business I was dealing with recently was, your machines degrade not over time as traditionally, you look at the ATO depreciation rates, you depreciate a desk over 10 years, but it's actually over use. So your desk might last 20 or 30 years, but if someone's sitting at it every single day, then it's going to depreciate over 5 years sort of thing. So you want to start thinking about these sort of elements. And the next one is, I guess, now that you sort of, if you can sit there and understand the after effects of growth or the after effects of a different sort of capacity, because the other thing is you might want to sit there and, for instance, during COVID, business effectively has to shut down. So what does that actually mean? That means, in the future, you might not be thinking about this today, but you've effectively had to shut the door or reduce your capacity. So your wear and tear, a lot of your replacement CapEx has got deferred in the future now as well. So you're not going to be sitting there worrying about, in 5 years needing to replace everything. That might have actually been pushed out 6 years, and that gives you a bit of buffer as well to accumulate the capital that you need to actually replace everything. So it's these sort of effects that you want to start thinking of, and thinking about all the different sort of, I guess I sort of analogize it to this sort of tree, right? You want to think about, you're growing your tree and what's all the different apples that can fall off. And then you want to sort of have a look and comprehend, what levers, if you pull different levers in your business, what's it actually going to mean? Is it going to, if you drop a staff or 2 staff or 3 staff off, does that mean you can actually serve as many people anymore? And if not, are you still going to be profitable? It might actually be more profitable to shut down the business just for a temporary time. And I guess a few strategic questions that I guess I like to ask myself as well is, do you have the capacity to expand? They're more appropriate cost structures, and a lot of the time that's the sort of outsource, the do-it-yourself versus outsource model. If you're doing everything internally, that's a lot more risk on yourself. You've got a lot of operational leverage in your business then, but if you're sort of outsourcing key bits and pieces to that, for instance, renting an apartment, you don't have monthly repayments. If you rent something, you're locked in for a 12-month lease. If you need to shut down for 12 months, it's a little bit of skin off your back, as opposed to, in a market decline, if you have an asset that you've got a mortgage on, not only can you go bankrupt because you can't pay your mortgage, but then the asset can get sold. And in a declining market, your asset the value of your asset might be sold for a lot less than what your repayments are, etc. And you've got a double hit of a loss there. I guess the other thing is you want to have cash is king at the end of the day. Like you don't run your business on receivables, you run it on cash in the door and what you can pay and whatnot. So you want to have a look at, okay, during whatever times it may be, and you might actually find with a lot of these modeling exercises, your cash flow dips and you might go negative cash flow for a month or 2 months or 3 months. But what happens then after your sales recover or the seasonality in your business sort of recovers, you start going to positive cash flow. And then it's just a question, all right, well, I know I've got a dip coming up. I know I'm going to be short of cash this month. Let me plan ahead. Let me either have a look at dialing back some dividends. Let me have a look at dialing back, some CapEx, deferring some of the CapEx expenditure to after this, or let me have a look at getting a short-term line of credit until my business can sort of recover into a positive cash flow. It just allows you to start thinking about these sort of these themes earlier on. And then also, I guess it allows you to unearth any flaws in your current thinking, your current business model. And I guess there's a lot of examples out there of how these modeling exercises do this. One example, sort of a manufacturing business that I was dealing with in the past. Basically, what these guys had is they had a declining cost of goods produced. So over time, and they had a long lead time on their devices. So they would need, up to 6 months to actually produce one of these things. But over the 6 months, the market for the raw materials was moving so quickly that it was nearly a 5 to 10% drop in the actual cost. And what that was doing though, is he was obviously responding his business thinking, okay, this is great, like it's costing me less to actually produce this shit. So let me go out and sell it for cheaper. Now I can increase my quantity. But what it was actually doing is, back in 6 months ago, you paid $120 and now you're selling it for $100. You're actually getting a $20 loss on your products. So it sits there and thinks, oh, okay, well now I've got a 6 month lead time. I need to be selling my inventory at 6 months ago prices. And same for actually increasing cost of goods as well. You're actually selling inventory that's old and outdated, so you can sell it for cheaper as well and then increase your prices. So you want to dynamically adjust your pricing back to when you're actually producing. So that's one flaw we sort of unearthed in his business model. Another one was the working capital. Like these people had 120-day sort of receivables and they had, no accounts payable or whatever. So they had huge cash flow squeezes coming in, the summer months when they had a bit of seasonality in there. And what we sort of found is by reducing their accounts receivable days and going back and asking all the customers, all right, we actually need to get paid, with a 30-day time limit. They no longer had to use a credit facility in the sort of summer months because, they had enough cash and they could forecast out their cash flow requirements for the next sort of 12 months. I guess I'll leave the floor open now to any questions anyone may have, or anything about any of the sort of Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. So, yeah, if anybody's got any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. Now, I understand that was a lot to digest, and certainly there was some great Excel tips. I think one thing, if I may, Adam, I'll share this video with the participants afterwards.
Yeah.
And they can go back through this at their own pace, and they can then sit there, working their way through Excel, and use all those great tips that you provided. What I'll do, everybody, I'll share that video. I'll also share Adam's contact details, as you see here. Just getting some general comments through, no questions, just some thank yous and things like that. So that's great. So what I'll do, if nobody has any further questions, I'll leave it open for another minute or so. I will just promise to send all this information around. Adam, thank you so much for this detailed presentation. I got quite a lot out of it, just simply the application of some of those shortcuts in Excel, particularly. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, so if nobody else has any questions, any final comments, Adam?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone for sort of taking the time out today and listening to me sort of go on for the last hour. And I hope it wasn't too quick, or I hope it sort of didn't gloss over anything. And I hope everyone actually took something away from it all.
Good. Yeah.
Hopefully you can sit there and at the very least sort of set up a little forecast of your own.
Yep. And just with that, the one thought that I had is if I had this financial forecasting model set up, I guess that would be very useful if I'm dealing with a bank or something looking for credit. I would imagine if you can show some modelling behind your forecasting and the assumptions you've made in this way, that would be, I guess, a reasonable tool to convince someone to provide you with credit. Would that be right, Adam?
Yeah, well, exactly. And for instance, like a lot of my clients use it actually for their loan facilities and credit facilities. Like I've had property funds in the past that, we set up and they it's like these things, how long is a piece of string for how complex they can get. But basically, you want to take this to the bank, and it gives them comfort around and surety around your actual cash flows, and it gives it comfort and surety around what your debt covenants are. So for instance, things are looking at your LVR ratios, things are looking at your EBITDA coverage, your interest coverage ratio, and your EBITDA to net debt ratios. The little bits and pieces that the banks look at in terms of managing their own credit risk, these models sort of spit out over a rolling forecast 5-year basis. Okay. So sit there and give them, the banks, a lot of comfort around your own business and sort of sitting there and saying, oh, okay, hey,
Great. And I guess
not that concerned that your cash flows. Yeah.
And I guess one comment here is that this is obviously, as Adam mentioned earlier, this isn't financial advice here. This is simply examples of what you can do. So I mean, we recommend that if you enter in some kind of agreement with a financial advisor before you make any decisions, shouldn't certainly base it purely on what you've heard here today. So I just want to make that clear. Quick question, the second spreadsheet, do we get a copy of this?
Yeah, so unfortunately the second spreadsheet, that's my pro forma. So I generally I'm happy to sort of have a discussion helping you set one of those up.
Okay.
But, yeah.
One does that. And I don't think that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable. I'm just going to check the Q questions now. Yep, so I think somebody's going to connect with you, Adam, directly on these tools. So if there's no more questions, I'll wrap the session up and just say thank you very much again, Adam. Thank you all for attending today. I'll share the video with you all, and hopefully in your own time you can then go through and use the tool that Adam's provided. And also you can connect with Adam if you need further advice. So thanks, Adam. Thanks, everybody. And